Hello, and welcome to Your Vote Counts, a public service program bringing local candidate interviews to you for the primary 2020 election. This is produced by Capital Community Television via remote technology in collaboration with the community groups of American Association of University Women, the League of Women Voters Marion and Polk Counties, 4 neighborhood associations, and Salem City Club. For the nonpartisan contested races selected, all candidates were invited and all accepted. Candidates did not receive our questions developed by the sponsoring groups ahead of time. The candidates were asked to prepare a 3-minute opening statement telling about themselves, their qualifications, and a vision for the elected position. I am Cindy Condon from Salem City Club, and I would like to introduce Danny Jaffer, running for the office of Polk County Commissioner, position 1, who will now begin with his opening statement. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Cindy. Great to be with you in this unique way. First, let me say during this very interesting time, thank you to the League of Women Voters, the American Association of University Women, and the other participating associations and CCTV. In this time of pandemic crisis, I sincerely appreciate your efforts to make this outreach happen and doing everything you can to make democracy work. At the same time, keeping everybody safe. Thank you. Thank you for the good work. We're in a different place than we were just over a month ago. When I first made my decision to run for Polk County Commissioner, it was primarily based on my commitment to public service and getting things done. Public safety, safer roadways, support of our local communities and schools, investment in quality public health programs, countywide broadband internet capability to support families, education, farms, businesses, and healthcare, a need that our current situation indicates and illustrates well, are all things I'd like to work on and get done. I believe that my past work in the Navy, in the private sector, and with a local water district, volunteer positions I've had in the local community, along with my education, puts me in a good position to continue to be a leader at the county level in public service, to oversee the direct county government with a drive to get things done, serving all constituents. And that's kind of where we were. Now that focus has shifted. We're in the midst of a crisis that's affecting everyone in Polk County and the world. This is a real thing, this coronavirus pandemic. It's touching lives and businesses as we speak. It is a world-changing crisis of a scope that, with the exception of folks who went through the Great Depression and World War II, no one's had to deal with. But we know we need to work together to get through it. We know that it's something that good government and good leadership must play a part in. No one can do this alone. We need to be able to plan, carry out the plan, and look forward in order to prepare for what comes next. Health maintenance, business resurrection, educational functions, all will be involved as we recover. We must have leadership in this crisis. In nearly 25 years as an officer and a pilot in the military, I essentially had a career in crisis management, from planning and flying search and rescue missions here in the Northwest, to massive earthquake, tsunami, typhoon, recovery and humanitarian assistance missions in places like the Philippines and Indonesia, in planning military operations in Kosovo, Turkey, and the Middle East, and running air logistics centers and flying relief supplies. I've trained and operated in crisis, and I've coordinated planning for taking care of future crises. More recently, in my role as president of the Lucky Mute Domestic Water Cooperative, I, along with my fellow board members, have helped to plan and direct our course for facilities maintenance and infrastructure to keep the district viable and healthy for another 50 years. I think that I have the right background, the right education, the right experience to help lead the county government through the current COVID-19 crisis and help plan for the upcoming issues associated with recovery as we move out of it. So stay safe. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Danny, for that information. And now I'd like to give you an opportunity to address some questions and topics of concern to the community. The first question is, Many residents do not understand the role of commissioners play in our lives. Why should residents and voters be interested in this race?
Well, one of the big issues is that they are the end deliverers of state and federal services. So if you're looking for something like the public county health delivery or services dealing with homeless issues, the county is the final arbiter and the final provider of the service that deals with those things. Yes, we need the state to be involved. Yes, we need to have cities be involved, but the county kind of holds the purse strings to those things, has the expertise in most cases, and has the people that are available to work on those situations.
So what issues would you bring to the table which you feel have not been adequately addressed up to now?
Well, one of the primary things is something that we're dealing with right now in this conference is that we don't have adequate broadband capability throughout the county. This is something I talked about 10 years ago that we needed to plan for and move toward. It was getting broadband capability throughout the county. This would be something that would help farmers in their ability to pull down information, businesses with their ability to transact business, education, which right now, we've got schools that are out so that kids could do distance learning, and also delivery of health care, at least through video conference with doctors and nurses, keeping everyone safe. So that's something that I think is a very necessary thing. To me, it's as important as back in the old days, something called rural free delivery, and also the electrification project. And obviously, we couldn't do it alone. We need to have some backing from the federal and the state government. But this is something that, like I said, I talked about. And just the past summer, a little survey went out asking people if they wanted better internet service in the county. This came from the current administration at the county. And I thought, gosh, you need to send out a survey to ask people if they want better internet. I don't think there's any question that most people do. Another issue that I think needs more attention, and I know people have been working on this a long time, is the infrastructure of the bridges in Salem, coming out of West Salem. It's going to continue to be worked on. Maybe the plan that was there was not the best plan, and the fact that it was eventually voted down might be the reason why. But I don't think there's a lot of folks who don't feel we need a better access. They just have feelings about where that access should be, and I've got some of my own ideas about that as well. Some other issues have to do with highway safety, road safety. We have great places to see, great vistas, great roads to get there if you drive a car. But if you're somebody who likes to ride a bicycle or go for a walk, it's a little bit more difficult. So I'd like to see some emphasis on the infrastructure of what's going on our roadways in the county.
So thank you. So moving on, what are some of the unique characteristics of Polk County that would affect your role as commissioner if you're elected?
Well, number one, the growing wine industry in this county is one of those things that affects what I would do. This is an industry that has been growing at 10 to 15% a year. It's been growing quickly in Polk County. We're the second largest producer of wine grapes in the state. And I think that this is something that we need to put some emphasis on if we want to see where our future is in farming in this county. And that's not just related to the wine industry, but things that are associated with that. So that's an industry that I think would affect how we should approach things we're doing in the county. But also, I think, kind of shifting gears on that quite a bit, what the state and the federal government brings to the table when we're talking about roadway infrastructure and things like communications that I was talking about earlier.
Thank you. Although there's been a start in aiding homeless veterans, what can be done to address homelessness in families, single adults, special needs population, and transitional centers for teens?
Well, that's going to be a collaborative effort. I think we all agree that it's something that is almost just an awful thing to see in our community, that we've actually allowed something like this to happen. And it's not the fault of the folks who are there who don't have houses to be in. It's kind of a collective failure, I think, of everyone. And so it's got to be a collective solution. There are many factors, from mental health to employment, and gosh, we're just, the unemployment numbers have just shot through the roof in the last couple of weeks. And so we may see a recurrence of, or an increase as we're trying to deal with the problem at the same time. Some things that we might be able to try, and some things we ought to be able to get involved in, are, first off, increasing the places where people can be safe. It's critical for folks who are homeless to be someplace where they're safe, where they can put their belongings and have them be safe, so they can at least pursue employment in a normal time, of course, and then try and work their way out of the situation they're in. But they also need counseling, financial counseling, mental health counseling. There needs to be doctors involved. There needs to be counselors for family members of these folks. So, like I said, it's a collaborative effort. I think that the housing crisis that we have, which kind of leads to the homelessness crisis in some ways, is also something that needs to be addressed. And if that requires that we look at some of our zoning and code issues in terms of where we can house people, then we ought to be doing that.
Thank you. And now moving on to some infrastructure. How would you assess Polk County water quality, and how can water pollution be improved?
Well, we don't want to improve water pollution. We want to make water pollution less. So overall, Polk County's water is fairly good. Having lived in 3 of the communities that have water systems here in the county, I have not been dissatisfied. And as the president of the water cooperative here in southeast Polk County, I can tell you that we're doing everything we can to provide the best, cleanest, quality water that we can. The bigger issue, aside from the delivery issue, is what can we do to maintain the safety and the quality of that water? Obviously, pollution is a big issue, and we've got a lot of wells, and we've got a lot of surface water coming out of both the west and the east side for all of our communities. If you're out here on the east side of the county, you're dealing with agriculture and runoff from yards, and if you're on the western side, might be something to do with what's going on in the forest industry. So, water quality is huge. It has to do with the chemicals we use. It has to do with how we move transportation. It has to do with what we're pumping into the air. And on top of that, we're in a situation where we've got a low amount of rainfall. We're only at about 2/3 of our annual rainfall for the year at this point. We've got a snowpack that's probably not going to last us through the summer. So another big issue and another big part of that is conservation, and we need to press conservation, which also helps improve water quality. But watersheds, water containment, as an example, the water district that I'm on, we are pushing forward with building more artificial storage for water that we would fill up during high times of water, and this would be contained so that we can keep it clean and treat it as it comes out for service to our members. But the other side of that is whether or not we're going to look at getting water from other sources. And but if we do that, then we need to ensure that we're going to maintain the water quality that we've got.
So, Danny, you mentioned the current issue related to the situation we're in right now. So, since our current pandemic has affected our financial health, how do you suggest addressing decreased revenue and increased expense or increased needs?
Well, I think that we're actually going to have to look at least on a county level, how many people we've got employed. And that's a terrible thing to say, but we'll have to look at that. Hopefully we can keep everybody working, but there may be some differential in pay that's required, and bring in a half-day program or a split shift program, split work program, so we can keep everybody employed, but we may not be able to meet the pay requirements for everyone. Also, some of our projects that would be underway may have to be delayed. I think that'd probably be the first thing we do, is look at delaying projects that are not they're not emergent, that are not something that has to be done right now, in a way that similarly, folks who are putting off doctor visits that are not considered a primary situation right now. And so I think those are, that's where the big money is in the projects, and it's in the personnel. And so we'll have to look at that, but on the broader end, we'll have to see what kind of relief we can get at the state and federal level. And we try to be self-sufficient, but this is a crisis, and we're going to have to go in every direction we possibly can to find a way out of it.
So moving to a bit of a broader issue, do you see a rural-urban divide in Polk County? If so, how does it affect decision making?
I don't really see one, to be honest. I mean, we do have things that are happening in our rural areas that are different than what are happening in our urban areas. But to say that Polk County even has any real dramatic urban areas would be kind of a stretch, I think. We do have West Salem, we do have Dallas, Monmouth, Independence, but even there, those are relatively small communities compared to some other counties that have some very large cities. I think that most people who live in what we might term the urban areas of Polk County already know what's going on, or at least have some good idea of what's going on out on the countryside and vice versa. There's not a lot of folks that I meet in town who have no idea what's going on in the fields and the farms outside of the city's boundaries. I mean, they see it on a daily basis. So the divide is not as great here as I think it is in other places. And I think that overall, people in Polk County have a pretty good feeling about how people in each of those two areas, as we differentiate them, they feel pretty good about their neighbors.
Thank you, Danny. That about does it for time today. Thank you so much for joining us for our interview today and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you very much. I sincerely appreciate it.
Thanks to Capital Community Television for the extensive efforts made to make this program happen, and thanks to you, the public, for watching in order to become an informed voter. If you have recently moved or need to register to vote, you have until April 28th to do so. Ballots will be mailed out beginning April 29th. Remember to vote, because your vote counts.